Dear writer, you need to quit. This is the show that helps you know what to quit, what to keep, and what to question. My name is Becca Syme, and I'm a Gallup certified strengths coach with thousands of hours of coaching 6- and 7-figure authors, mid-listers, major award winners, and new authors alike, because everyone needs to quit something. Anyone can tell you what worked for them, and of course they say it might not work for you, but they can't tell you why. Well, I can tell you why. Welcome to the QuitCast. Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 28 of the QuitCast. And today we are going to talk about quit, what to quit. Because in the what to quit, what to keep, what to question, we spend a lot of time on what to keep with the Strengths Finder episodes. And then we do QTP fairly often, which is what to question. But today, we're back to the actual QuitCast. Quit fixing the wrong problem. That's a big topic, right? So I want to talk about the general concept of what I mean, and then we're going to talk about a very specific instance of how that is applied so we can take a look at the theory and then how to extrapolate that theory to whatever it is in our lives that we need to quit fixing the wrong problem. So let's just say, for sake of argument, that you have a headache and you go to the doctor and you say, I need you to fix my headache. And the doctor says, great, here's a prescription and that should fix the headache. And of course, if they're a good doctor, they're going to say, well, but come back if the headache comes back, right? And then you come back and you run some tests and you realize that the headache isn't the real issue. The headache is the presenting symptom, but the headache is not actually the problem. The problem is, and then insert, dire medical consequence here for why you might be having headaches. There might be other reasons too. You might be sitting in the wrong chair for too long during the day. You might only get headaches at certain times because you have, for instance, stopped taking a medication, or you have recently changed glasses prescriptions, or your spine is out of alignment, or there are all kinds of things that might be causing the headache, including, right, the dire medical insertion here. But the headache is not the underlying problem, let's say. And so there's a bigger problem that you need to fix, or the headaches are going to keep coming back. The pain point is going to keep coming back. And that's what I want to talk about today, because I see a variety, and I say this in the intro, I've coached thousands of writers, and really from the 6- and 7-figure all the way down to haven't even completed a book yet. That's a very wide range and variety, but the problems that writers have are so consistent because they come from the shared personalities that we have, or the shared humanity that we have. And being human, of course, causes all kinds of problems, as we all know. But the problems that we're fixing, that we're coming to, let's say, experts to fix, or that you're coming to me to fix, those problems that present are often the headache style symptom problems. They're not the real underlying problems, which is precisely why I teach the Write Better Faster class the way that I do, and why I write the Quit books and do the QuitCast the way that I do, because dealing with the presenting problems is somebody else's job. I'm not that type of writing doctor, right? I want to fix the underlying problems so that we don't continue to suffer in this way, regardless of whether you ever give me money or not, because you giving me money is not my primary goal in this relationship. My primary goal is for us all to be okay and good writers in this industry that I care about, the industry being okay and surviving, because how we all are as people impacts everyone, because we're part of the system of the industry. And so I want the system of the industry to be as healthy as possible. That's why I do this. And so my care is, did we really solve the underlying problem? So when people come in to Write Better Faster, often what I see is that they've read 1,000 books, or they've been to a bunch of workshops, or they've heard a bunch of people speak, and they're still not addressing the real issue because no one is getting down to the first cause. And this is why I talk so much about systems and about first causes, is because that's where the real problems are, is in how our life is structured as a system and in how inertia works. And also, of course, in how our brain patterns work. That's where the real issues are that we need to be about solving if we want to not have those headache level symptoms anymore. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to talk about the most common reason that people come into my class or come into coaching, and why the real problems aren't being addressed and what those real problems are. So the presenting issue, the headache level symptom issue, is, drum roll, I guess, maybe, but it shouldn't be really big rocket science jump to the conclusion, because my course is called Write Better Faster. So guess why people are coming to me? Not a big intuitive leap to say that they want to write faster, or they want to write better, or they want to write better, comma, faster, right? So there's some version of, I want to be able to write as fast as humanly possible and do as well as I can possibly do, which is normal. That's a normal thing to feel. But not writing fast enough for at least 50% of people who come into the class is not actually the problem that we need to fix with them. So what are the real presenting problems? And there are 4 of them, the 4 most common reasons, and I kind of grouped them together. So we're going to talk about them one at a time. The first reason that people come in and say, hey doc, my head hurts, right? That's the symptom level. They say, I want to write faster. The first reason is not because they aren't writing fast, but because they can't write fast. And this is the hard truth, right? That I have to tell some people, is that there are some brains that are genuinely not wired for super fast production. I'm not sure why this is such rocket science for us, because it seems like in every other field, in every other arena, we acknowledge that not everybody can do everything, but somehow in writing, we get this feeling that I should be able to do all of the things, and my capacity shouldn't be putting a limitation on what I'm capable of. But yet that's true in every single other profession. In every profession, there's always some kind of limitation, because we're all human and we have limitations. But we also have areas where we really, really stand out, and that's what gets ignored, right? When I can't write fast, then that might be a limitation, but there might be other ways that I'm standing out, other ways that I'm able to make up for that, that I'm not taking into consideration, because all I'm doing is focusing on this problem of I can't write fast. And then of course Becca comes along and talks to them, and we look at their personality and their platform and all of these other things. And then I say, okay, I don't think that's really your problem. Like, clear. And they usually self-identify this, which is the best part about it, is because almost always people who are wired this way, they know they're wired this way. They know they're not going to write any faster than they're writing for the most part. They might get incrementally faster, or they might be able to be a little more consistent than they had been when they release the expectation that they should be just like everybody else. But then they're able to really embrace what's strong and good about them, and that fixes the problem, right? Like, that's how we want to get back into alignment. It definitely is one of the biggest issues that I see, is there's actually a capacity difference in, am I wired to write like a very fast person, let's say vomit drafter, let's say fast drafter? Am I wired like that, or am I not? And if I'm not, and I don't want to even try, then why am I consistently forcing myself to try to operate like a fast writer? Like, really, that is the biggest problem that I end up fixing for people, is when they're just not wired to be that super fast writer. And we have to reset their expectations to where they can realistically write. And that's hard, but it's worth it, right? Because the way that you can be free to write once you are aligned is a magic thing. It is absolute magic. And I love it when it happens. But that problem that presented wasn't the real problem that they needed to fix, right? It wasn't that they don't write fast enough. It's that they're not shifting their expectations to be able to take advantage of where they are wired for real true success, and then where they're not. So then the second of those headache level symptom presenting, where someone says, I need to write faster, and what's really going on is a different problem. The second one of those problems is that their life has too much emotional inertia to be able to support a lot of time spent writing. And what this usually means is that these are the type of people who like to give themselves away. They like to say yes to everything. They like to help other people. They want to take care of their family. They want to take care of their responsibilities, or they have a very demanding day job that requires a lot of their attention. And so when you have a lot of emotional inertia, where the expectations that are placed on you by something that is not writing are greater than those that are placed on you by writing, the thing that will always take second place is the thing with the lowest level of inertia. And again, it's not that this is a fun thing to talk about. It's just that when we try to solve the wrong problem, you can try to apply all kinds of methods and tactics to write faster. But if your emotional inertia is not supporting you being able to do that, if you're not able to say no, if you're not able to offload some things, if you're not able to set boundaries with people, if you're not able to create time for yourself, especially if you happen to also not be a morning writer, which tends to be the easiest place for people who are wired like this to be able to get time back from themselves, is to do it first thing when no one else has started asking you for anything yet. Well, unless you have toddlers, of course, right? But if you're not a morning writer, then it can be even more difficult to get that time if you fall into this particular category. And that can be a really difficult discussion to have too, because when you're willing to look at fixing the right problem, then you have to decide if it's really a problem or not. And I've coached a lot of writers who have come in with this particular problem, with the inertia, emotional inertia issue, and said, you know what, I'm not willing to pay the consequences to push back on that inertia. And so I'm going to expect myself to get less done instead of trying to create more margin. And that's the choice that they make, and that's a valid choice. And so if that is the problem, the presenting issue might feel like I write too slow, I don't finish enough books. But once we get down to what the real core issue is, we realize what the real problem is and whether it's an expectation that needs to shift or some boundaries that need to get set. And it's different for different people, right? No one can tell you what it should be. You have to discover it for yourself. That's part of why I encourage you to do the critical thinking on your own. And I don't just tell you what you should think, because it means more to you when it comes out of who you are and not just out of what some expert says. With this particular type of issue around fast writing, the questions are often, is it worth it to you to give up the inertia of the emotion that exists in your life, to give up the stability, to give up your peace sometimes, to be able to say no to people so that you can have the protected time? And if it is, great, then do that. And if it's not, great, then don't do it. The writing will be okay. You can come back to it. Not everyone needs to be, and this is such an important thing to say out loud, not everyone needs to be a professional full-time 6 and 7-figure author. Not everyone needs that. And a lot of people who are wired in this way, they feel like they should feel like that, but deep down they know that they don't. And again, that's why it takes the talking about it, the digging into it, the understanding of it, and the looking for the real problem, and not just taking whatever the surface level issue is, because then you're not going to solve the problem. So the third headache level symptom that presents as I'm not writing fast enough, where there's really a deeper issue, the third deeper issue is a life with no margin. And this is very common with people who are higher drivers, who are higher executors, who want to work really hard, who really thrive on that feeling of having almost no margin on their plate. And that type of person will often feel extremely driven to write faster, achieve higher, do more, be better than they are, and not take into account that they might be writing just as fast as they can, as they're able. And even giving more margin in their life, or trying to push harder or do faster, try different tactics, isn't necessarily going to help, because they're not wired for those things, or they can't say no to this, or they have a day job or whatever. But this desire to constantly be pushing more and achieving higher and being better is always going to drive them. These are the type of people who write 3,500, 4,000, 5,000 or 6,000 words and think that's not enough. And they're doing that almost every day consistently, or consistently enough that it's a pattern, and they still feel like that's not enough. Like, I could do more, because they're innately wired to feel like they could do more. The interesting thing is they often are innately wired to feel like other people can also do more than they can. And that's also normal. And these people are drivers. They're the impetus for others to be able to push them on to do greater things. And that's why I'm never a fan of telling people not to give any advice to anyone, right? Because you might be just the type of person, as this driver person, that someone else needs to hear you say what you would say to yourself to help them get out of the funk that they're in, right? But also, you're always going to expect more of yourself than you're able to give. And that's not a bad thing. Again, we don't want to fix that problem. We don't want you to suddenly create too much margin or suddenly have way, way less on your plate, because that will create its own set of problems. What we want is to readjust the expectations when you have a super small amount of margin, to be able to say, when have I actually reached the place where I can not do any more, where it's not possible for me to get any faster or to add anything else on. Sometimes the only way to figure that out is to burn out slightly, right? So people who have less margin need to be more aware of where their burnout topple point is, so that they know, okay, I can't write that much more, or I can't add one more thing on. And sometimes you have to unbalance. Unfortunately, that sometimes comes with consequences that are more difficult to handle, but the person who's wired like this is often also wired to be able to handle those much better. So the reason that this is not a problem, that you actually need to write faster, is there are an awful lot of people in this arena who can't write any faster than they are. They're already writing faster than almost everyone around them. The only people ahead of them are the super outliers, who probably also have some wiring or platform or inertia capacity that allows them to do what they do, right? But we're not always aware of that, of how time is a factor for us or not, or how inertia is a factor for us or not. And so we always have to be questioning the premise of whether we should be writing faster or not, because most of the people in this arena with the margin problem don't need to be writing any faster than they are. They need to be helping themselves to push in other places where they can make a lot more impact. And the fourth of the headache level symptoms, where we're fixing the wrong problem by trying to write faster, is the blow or the hit. Like the person who has been stalled in a book for a long period of time. I mean, I've seen this happen to people where they get stalled for 18 months, 2 years, 3 or 4 years sometimes, because they took such a big blow to either their inertia or their self-confidence, their ego, their ability to move forward has been impacted so much by this hit that they can't even sit down with the manuscript sometimes. This might have been a bad release, and that release could have been the fault of the person who is bearing the responsibility, but often it's not their fault, that there were situations that were out of their control, and they're just not wired to be able to give someone else the responsibility for doing what they did to impact a release that was my fault, because I wrote the book, therefore everything about the release is my fault. And so there's an awful lot of that that guilt that comes with it when the release is bad, that it presses down and it makes you, when you sit down and try to write the book, not really able to move forward. It might have been a friend's betrayal, especially if the friend is in the industry, and especially if that friend has been seeing success because of that betrayal. The number of times that I see this happen is so high. And so when you sit down, I've seen it with co-writers and friends, with people who publish in the same house, with people who are part of the same group. I've seen this happen so many times, where someone else's either pushing you down or inadvertently having success when you didn't have success is such a visceral reminder of the fact that you haven't had the success that you want, that it continues to assault you every time you see their name, every time you go in their fan group, every time you see a post about their books. That kind of sort of post-traumatic issue can be a lot of stress on your system, and it can make you stall and not be writing. And it might also be a series of events that were out of control that have to do with the people around you, right? So someone got sick, someone cheated, there's all kinds of different options that could potentially happen where someone else's decisions have impacted you, and you've lost time and you've lost inertia and energy because of it, and you are frustrated with that. And so in that case, you can take all the productivity classes that you want to take, and they're not going to address that underlying problem. And so you're going to continue to write fast for a couple weeks, maybe write fast for a week, and then not write fast anymore because there's this underlying systemic issue of either an inertia hit, like your platform got an inertia hit, or you personally got a self-confidence hit. Those are not insignificant to consider, and they affect writers so often. And if you don't deal with that, then you're never really going to get over that underlying first cause problem. And so it's so important to face those head on and to do the grief process that we need to do so we can get back on. When your significance takes a hit like that, it's really, really important to heal that significance so that you can get back on the horse again. And that's something I see so often. But people come looking for writing advice, and then we end up fixing the life issues. And that's really what I mean when I say we're fixing the wrong problem. It's almost always an issue that impacts us that we're just not thinking that should impact us, or it shouldn't be important, or we shouldn't have to reset our expectations. All of those things happen in our heads, and then we immediately think, but nope, the problem is I need to write faster, so let me go solve this issue. The reason that we consistently fix the wrong problem is that we are not paying attention to the ways that our subconscious brain works. We don't usually know much about how the context inside of our head impacts the decisions that we make on a regular basis. And we let it control way too much of our decision making without giving it any attention. And the goal in learning to fix the right problem is to pay more attention to the psycho subsystems that are at play in most of our decision making, to be more aware, to be more in control, to be more intentional. Fixing the right problem is about understanding all of the factors that go into all of the decisions that we make. So I know this is heady. I know that this is a lot to think about. You may want to watch this again and take some notes on it, just so that you can really get at whether you're having any of these issues. So I want to thank you guys for being here. Like I said, I know this is very big picture, and I want to make sure that I'm here to answer your questions. And so if you have them, please put them in the comments. Make sure that you're subscribed with your notifications turned on so that you can get more episodes of the QuitCast. And we're going to start a new Strengths for Writers next week, and I'm excited about that one because it's one of mine. And so I'm looking forward to seeing you all in the next QuitCast. Bye.